The shuttle descended through the swirling mists of Karish 4, its landing lights piercing the alien twilight. Inside, human xenobiologist Ethan Carter peered out the viewport, his eyes wide with the thrill of first contact with a new world. "Doesn't look so bad," Ethan remarked, turning to his fellow passenger, Dr. Michael Svensson, a renowned geologist. Michael, a sturdy man with a gentle demeanor, chuckled as he adjusted his instruments. "Don't let the calm view fool you," Michael replied. "The sensors are picking up some intense magnetic fluctuations. This planet is anything but tame." As the shuttle touched down with a gentle thud, the door hissed open, revealing the lush, alien landscape dappled with bioluminescent flora. The air was thick with a sweet, pungent aroma. "Welcome to Karish 4, announced the pilot, a seasoned Zalari named Rix, his voice a deep rumble. "Please remember, this is a Category 5 Deathworld. I advise caution at every step." Ethan and Michael gathered their gear and stepped onto the spongy terrain, following Rix towards the research base. The ground squelched under their boots, and distant roars echoed through the towering forests. "I've heard Earth has its fair share of dangerous locales," Rix said, glancing back at Ethan with a hint of curiosity. "Yeah, but nothing like this," Ethan replied, his gaze fixed on the shadowy movements between the trees. "Earth's deadliest creatures don't usually glow in the dark." As they approached the base, a figure emerged from the shadow of the structure. A Zalari female, her skin adorned with glowing markings. She approached with an air of authority. "I'm Vera, your liaison," she introduced herself, her voice smooth and commanding. "I hope you're prepared for what this planet has to offer." Ethan extended his hand, a human gesture of greeting. Vera hesitated, then reciprocated, her touch light. "We're ready," Ethan assured her. "Aren't we, Michael?" "Absolutely," Michael responded, his voice steady despite the unfamiliar environment. "We've dealt with volcanic eruptions and tsunamis back on Earth. How different can it be?" Vera smiled, the glow of her markings brightening subtly. "You might be surprised. Let me show you to your quarters. Tomorrow we start early. The real work begins at sunrise." The trio walked towards the base, the alien night alive with sounds and movements. As they entered the safety of the base, Ethan looked back at the darkening horizon. "This might be more than we signed up for," he murmured, a sense of adventure mingling with an edge of uncertainty. "Or exactly what we live for," Michael added with a grin, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. Together, they stepped into the heart of Karish 4, ready to unravel its mysteries. Chapter 2. A Matter of Perspective. The first rays of the twin suns of Karish 4 pierced the translucent canopy of the base, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the floor. Ethan, Michael, and their new colleague, Dr. Tariq Al-Jahani, a biologist, gathered around a holographic map flickering with data points. "Here's the terrain we'll tackle today," Tariq announced, pointing to a dense forest region marked with red. "The scanners have picked up some unusual biosignatures here, completely off the charts." Michael leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Biosignatures? Are we talking about flora or fauna?" "Both," Ethan chimed in, his eyes scanning the map. "The real question is, how aggressive are they?" As they prepared their gear, Rix joined them, his tool belt clanking softly. "I'll guide you through the forest. Watch where you step and what you touch. Everything here can either bite or burn." The group set out, trekking through the lush undergrowth. The air was humid, filled with the calls of unseen creatures. "So, Ethan, tell us more about these Earth dangers you mentioned," Tariq asked, brushing aside a glowing vine. Ethan chuckled, ducking under a low-hanging branch. "Well, there's the box jellyfish, tiny but deadly. Then there's the cone snail. Looks harmless but is quite the opposite." Michael nodded, adding, "And don't forget our own plants. Some are so toxic, just brushing against them can send you into anaphylactic shock." Vera, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "It seems Earth is more similar to Karish 4 than we thought. But survival here depends not just on knowing your flora and fauna but understanding how they interact. The group paused by a stream, its waters shimmering with bioluminescent algae. Tarek knelt, collecting samples in small vials. "This is fascinating," Tarek murmured, examining a vial. "These algae might be what's causing the unusual biosignatures. Their luminescence could be a form of defense or communication." Rix pointed to a set of tracks beside the stream. "Those belong to the Clazer. They're attracted to the light. Consider it a dinner bell." "Dinner bell?" Michael asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, they're predators, but not top of the food chain. That honor belongs to something much larger," Rix explained, his voice dropping to a hush. As the group ventured deeper into the forest, the sounds of the wildlife grew louder and the canopy denser. Ethan paused, examining a large leaf coated in a sticky substance. "Everything here has adapted in unique ways to survive. It's not just about being the strongest or the fastest." Vera nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Adaptation is about making the most of what you have, turning your weaknesses into strengths." The group reached a clearing, and Rix signaled them to stop. Ahead, the ground vibrated slightly, a warning sign. "Stay close," Rix instructed, his eyes scanning the surroundings. A massive creature, covered in armored plates, emerged from the trees, its eyes reflecting the light of the group's torches. Michael reached for his camera, whispering, "What a magnificent example of evolutionary adaptation." Ethan watched, mesmerized, as the creature paused, then retreated back into the forest shadows. "Every day is a lesson in survival here," Vera said softly, watching the creature disappear. "Just like your Earth, Ethan." As they made their way back to the base, the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The day's experiences had bonded the group, their respect for Karish 4's deadly beauty deepening. "Tomorrow, we explore the northern sector," Rix announced as they reached the safety of the base. "Rest well. You'll need it." Ethan, Michael, and Tarek exchanged glances, their spirits high with anticipation. The mysteries of Karish 4 were unfolding, and they were at the forefront, ready for whatever challenges awaited. Chapter 3: The Shrouded Conspiracy. Morning light filtered through the base's viewport as Ethan and Michael prepared their equipment for another day's expedition. They were joined by Dr. Liam Jenkins, a physicist, who was eagerly discussing his findings from the previous day. "Did you guys see the energy fluctuations in the northern sector? They're not natural," Liam said, adjusting his spectrometer. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Not natural? What do you mean?" "I mean, it looks like someone is deliberately hiding something there. My readings were all over the place. Like there's some sort of cloaking device at work," Liam replied, pulling up the data on his tablet. Michael took the tablet, studying the graphs. "This could explain the sudden drop in biosignatures we noticed. It's as if a portion of the forest just vanishes." Rix overheard and joined in, his voice serious. "If you're right, then we might be dealing with something the consortium doesn't want found. We need to be careful." Deciding to investigate further, the team set out towards the northern sector, their sensors and cameras at the ready. As they approached the area Liam mentioned, the usual sounds of wildlife tapered off, giving way to an eerie silence. "This silence is unnatural," Tarek whispered, scanning the surroundings. "It's too quiet." Ethan nodded, pointing to his scanner. "The readings are off again. We're close." They reached a clearing where the vegetation seemed to stop abruptly. Liam set up his equipment, running diagnostics. "There's definitely something here. Some kind of electromagnetic distortion." Michael, examining the soil, found an unusual metallic residue. "This isn't part of the natural geology of Karish 4. This was placed here." Suddenly, Vera called them over to a hidden panel she had discovered under some foliage. "Look at this," she said as she cleared the dirt from the surface, revealing a high-tech interface. Liam connected his tablet to the panel, hacking the system. After a few tense moments, the ground began to tremble slightly, and a hidden door in the forest floor opened, leading down into darkness. "Who wants to bet this was kept off the official maps?" Michael joked nervously as they peered into the shaft. Equipped with headlamps, the team descended into the underground facility. The air grew cooler as they walked through a corridor lined with alien technology. "This is some kind of research station," Ethan concluded, examining a room filled with scientific equipment and screens displaying unknown data. Rix found a series of logs in the Zalari language. "These are old, maybe centuries. It's a research log about biological weapons." The team exchanged worried looks. Liam broke the silence. "This changes everything. If the consortium is covering this up, we need to gather as much information as possible and get it back to the base," Tarek insisted, his voice firm. They spent hours documenting everything, taking samples and downloading data from the computers. As they prepared to leave, Vera paused, her expression troubled. "We're not just scientists anymore," she said softly. "We're whistleblowers." With heavy hearts but determined spirits, the team made their way back to the surface, the weight of their discovery looming over them. As they emerged into the light of the twin suns, Ethan looked around at his team. "We need a plan. Whatever we do next, we do together." Michael clapped him on the shoulder, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by solemnity. "Together," he echoed. The group made their way back to the base in silence, each lost in thought about the implications of their findings. The adventure they had signed up for had just taken a dangerous turn. Chapter 4: Night of the Predators. The base was quiet as the team assembled in the main lab, tension thick in the air after their recent discovery. Ethan, Michael, Liam, and Tarek were joined by Dr. Samuel Hayes, an expert in examilitary tactics, who had been briefed on the situation. "We've got to secure our findings," Samuel stated, his voice steady. "If the consortium realizes we've accessed the underground facility, they won't hesitate to shut us down or worse." Ethan nodded, his mind racing with plans. "We need to set up a secure line to Earth. If we can get this information out, they can't silence all of us." The team agreed, and they began preparing their data for transmission. As night fell on Karish 4, a sense of urgency propelled their actions. Outside, the sounds of the alien night began to crescendo, a reminder of the planet's lurking dangers. Suddenly, the base's perimeter alarms blared to life. "Something's breached the outer fence," Tarek announced, checking the monitors. The screen showed the silhouettes of several large creatures moving towards them. "Positions, everyone," Samuel commanded, directing the team to secure the entry points. The researchers, though scientists at heart, had been trained in basic defensive tactics for such missions. Ethan and Michael hurried to the West Wing, where the largest breach was detected. "These must be the predators Rix warned us about," Michael said, gripping his stun baton. The creatures, illuminated by the base's floodlights, were unlike anything they had documented before. Massive, with iridescent scales that reflected the light, they moved with alarming speed and coordination. "Non-lethal force only," Ethan reminded Michael as they took their positions. One of the creatures charged, its massive body slamming into the reinforced glass. Ethan and Michael worked together, using the stun batons to deter the creature, driving it back into the night. Meanwhile, Liam and Tarek were in the data center, frantically working to encrypt and send the files. "Almost there," Liam muttered, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Back at the perimeter, Samuel and Rix were managing to hold off another group of predators. "These things are testing our defenses," Samuel observed, noting their retreat after a few clashes. "They're smart, learning our tactics." After a tense hour, the attacks subsided. The team regrouped in the central lab, breathing heavily but unharmed. "They've pulled back, for now," Rix reported, peering through the security feeds. "We got the data sent," Tarek added, relief evident in his voice. "That was too close," Ethan said, wiping his brow. "These attacks, right after our discovery, it can't be a coincidence." Michael nodded in agreement. "Someone doesn't want us here, and it's not just the wildlife." Samuel laid out their next steps. "We need to stay vigilant, increase watches, and improve our defenses. Whatever's coming next, we'll be ready." The team spent the rest of the night reinforcing the base, each member aware that their mission had evolved from exploration to survival. Despite the night's events, their resolve only strengthened. They knew too much, and the truth was worth protecting. As dawn broke over Karish 4, the base stood fortified, the team more united than ever. The night had tested them, but it had also shown their capability to face whatever threats came next, be they from the consortium or the planet itself. Chapter 5: Breaking the Barriers. As the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, the team assembled in the mess hall, fatigued yet focused. Ethan and Michael joined Dr. Raj Patel, a communications specialist, who had been up all night bolstering their systems against any potential sabotage. "We've got the secure line to Earth holding steady," Raj reported, sipping his coffee. "I've also set up additional firewalls. Any attempt to breach our data will trigger an alert." "Good work," Ethan said, nodding appreciatively. "Now we need to think about our next move. The consortium might already know we've accessed the facility." Michael, looking over the maps, pointed to a remote area of the planet. "What about moving some of our operations here? It's less likely to be monitored closely." Raj and Ethan exchanged a look, considering the option. "It's worth a shot," Raj agreed. "But moving our equipment without detection will be tricky." As they discussed logistics, Tarek entered the hall, visibly excited. "You need to see this," he urged them, holding up his tablet. "I've been analyzing the data we sent to Earth. There's a pattern in the consortium's activities we missed before." The group gathered around the tablet as Tarek showed them a series of coded transmissions between the consortium and an unknown entity. "These aren't just random communications. They're coordinated, and they spike every time we make a significant discovery." "Are you suggesting they have an informant among us?" Michael asked, his brow furrowing. "It's possible," Tarek admitted. "Or their surveillance is more sophisticated than we thought." Ethan clapped his hands, rallying the team. "Let's not jump to conclusions. For now, keep this close. Raj, enhance our internal monitoring. Let's see if we can catch them in the act." The day progressed with each member of the team taking on specific tasks. Raj and Michael worked on setting up a decoy operation, transmitting misleading data to throw off any internal spies. Meanwhile, Ethan and Tarek focused on strengthening their physical and digital defenses. As evening approached, Samuel joined them, fresh from a patrol. "I've set up motion sensors around the perimeter. If anything or anyone approaches, we'll know about it." The team convened outside under the setting suns, the sky painted with streaks of orange and purple. They stood together, reviewing their setup, a makeshift family bound by a shared mission. "Tonight, we monitor everything," Samuel declared. "Shifts every 3 hours. I don't want anything slipping through." Ethan, looking at each of his team members, felt a surge of gratitude. "Thanks, everyone. We're in this together, and we'll get through it together." The night passed without incident, the new security measures holding strong. The silence gave way to deep discussions about their findings, theories about the consortium's motives, and plans for the future. As dawn approached, Raj approached Ethan with a small smile. "No breaches, no unusual activity. It looks like our countermeasures are working." Ethan patted Raj on the back. "Excellent. Let's keep the pressure on. We're not just fighting for our project now. We're fighting for the truth." Determined, the team prepared for another day on Karish 4. Their bonds strengthened, their resolve unbroken. Each member knew the risks were high, but the potential to expose a galaxy-wide conspiracy propelled them forward. They were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, united by a commitment to unveil the darkness hidden beneath the surface. Chapter 6: A Kiss Under the Twin Moons. Under the ethereal glow of Karish 4's twin moons, the team sat outside the base, their faces lit by the soft light of a portable fire unit. The night was calm, an unusual stillness settling over the alien landscape. Ethan and Michael were joined by Dr. Lucas Barnes, a xenolinguistics expert, who had been translating the inscriptions they found in the underground facility. "I've made some progress," Lucas announced, handing Ethan a tablet. "These inscriptions aren't just historical records. They include detailed plans and schematics. Ethan scrolled through the translations, his excitement growing. This could be the evidence we need to prove the consortium's interference on this planet. Michael leaned over to view the screen. And to think all this was hidden right under our feet. What are the chances? Lucas shrugged. On Karish 4? Better than you'd think. As they discussed the implications of the findings, Vera approached, her presence adding a layer of tension and anticipation. She looked from Ethan to the others, a slight frown on her face. You're taking big risks. If the consortium finds out. We know. Ethan interrupted, his voice gentle. But it's worth it if it means exposing the truth. Vera nodded, her expression softening. I've never met anyone like you, Ethan. Your determination. It's contagious. Ethan smiled, his gaze lingering on her. I could say the same about you. The conversation shifted to plans for the next day. Lucas suggested a visit to a nearby sector where they might find more artifacts or inscriptions. As the group discussed logistics, Ethan and Vera found themselves gradually drifting away from the circle, drawn into a more private conversation. You've shown me so much, Ethan said quietly, looking up at the stars. Not just about this planet, but about courage. Vera touched his arm, her bioluminescent markings shimmering. And you've shown me that some rules are worth breaking. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to vanish. Ethan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch tentative. Vera's breath hitched slightly, her usual composure wavering under his heads rested together, both breathing heavily from the emotional intensity of the moment. Thank you, Vera murmured, for understanding, for being here. Ethan squeezed her hand. Where else would I be? Back at the fire, Michael and Lucas were deep in discussion, but the pair had eyes only for each other. The kiss had changed something fundamental between them, a bridge built not just across cultures but between hearts. The night deepened, and eventually, they rejoined the group, their secret smiles betraying their feelings to any observant eyes. But no one commented. The focus was on the mission, on the shared goal that had brought them all together. As the meeting ended, and they prepared to retire for the night, Ethan felt a new sense of purpose. The path ahead was fraught with dangers and uncertainties, but now he had another reason to fight. For the truth, for his team, and for a future that might just include the woman who had come to mean so much to him. Chapter 7. The Truth Unveiled. The morning after their night under the stars, the team gathered in the main conference room of the base, their expressions a mix of determination and anxiety. Ethan, still feeling the warmth of last night's encounter, joined Michael and Lucas at the table, where they were poring over the latest translations and data. Look at this, Lucas said, pointing to a particularly dense section of the text on his tablet. It's not just a history, it's an admission. The consortium knew about an ancient species here, one that nearly wiped out the Zalari centuries ago. Michael leaned in, his interest piqued. So, they've been keeping this a secret? Covering up a galactic threat to maintain control. That's exactly it, Ethan confirmed, his voice tight with frustration. We need to bring this to light, not just for us, but for all species misled by the consortium. The door hissed open, and Vera entered, her stride purposeful. She approached the table, her eyes scanning the room. I intercepted a transmission last night. The consortium is sending an inspector. They suspect something is amiss here. An inspector? Michael asked, his eyebrows raised. How much time do we have? A few days at most, Vera replied, folding her arms. We need to act fast. Ethan stood up, his resolve hardening. Let's use this time to gather more evidence. We'll present our findings when the inspector arrives. It'll be harder for them to dismiss everything in front of an official record. Lucas nodded in agreement. I'll compile all our translations and data into a report. Michael, can you help me cross-reference the historical data with the current political landscape? Of course, Michael responded, already pulling up files on his device. As the men worked, Ethan turned to Vera. We'll need your help too. Your testimony could be crucial. Vera met his gaze, her decision clear. I'll do whatever it takes. This truth is too important to stay hidden. The next few days were a blur of activity. Ethan and Michael collected samples and documented anomalies in the ecosystem that supported their findings about the ancient species. Lucas worked tirelessly, translating and compiling a comprehensive report, while Vera prepared to confront her own leaders. On the day of the inspector's arrival, the base was tense. The team assembled in the briefing room, their evidence laid out like pieces in a complex chess game. When the inspector, a stern-looking Zalari named Threx, arrived, Ethan greeted him. "Thank you for coming, Inspector Threx," Ethan said, offering a hand. Threx eyed it briefly before nodding and taking a seat. "Let's get straight to the point," Threx said, his voice devoid of warmth. "There are concerns about your activities on Karish 4. Explain yourselves." Ethan stepped forward, the room silent except for the soft hum of the base's systems. "Inspector, what we've found here will change how we view the consortium's role in galactic history. We've uncovered evidence of a cover-up." Michael chimed in, displaying images and data on the screen behind them. "These documents and artifacts show that the consortium has been aware of an ancient, potentially dangerous species here. But there's more." Lucas then presented the translations, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words. "These are not just random findings. They tell a story of survival, conflict, and deceit." Vera stepped up last, her voice ringing clear. "As a Zalari, I grew up trusting the consortium. But the truth is, we've been kept in the dark. This planet, these findings, they belong to the galaxy, not hidden away for the benefit of a few." Threx listened, his expression unreadable. When the presentations were done, he stood, his gaze sweeping over the team. "I will need to verify these findings. This is a serious accusation," Threx stated, his tone finally betraying a hint of disturbance. "You understand the implications?" "Yes," Ethan replied, feeling the weight of their claims. "We do." As Threx left, the team remained in the briefing room, their future uncertain but their conscience clear. They had done what was necessary, exposed the shadows of deceit for the sake of truth. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Chapter 8. A New Path Forward. The days following Inspector Threx's visit were fraught with tension. Ethan, Michael, Lucas, and Vera gathered in the main lab, their eyes frequently darting to the communication panel, awaiting any word from the consortium. "Do you think he believed us?" Michael asked, breaking the heavy silence. His voice echoed slightly in the quiet room. Lucas, who had been reviewing additional data on his tablet, looked up. "He'd be a fool not to. The evidence is undeniable. But believing us and acting on it are two different things." Ethan paced near the viewport, watching the alien landscape. "We've made our move. Now it's a waiting game." Vera, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Threx is my people's liaison. He's bound by duty, but he's also a seeker of truth. He will do the right thing, I believe." As if on cue, the communication panel beeped. The team tensed, their eyes fixed on Ethan as he pressed the accept button. Threx's face appeared on the screen, his expression stern yet thoughtful. "I have reviewed your findings and consulted with my superiors," Threx began. "The evidence you've presented is compelling and requires action." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "And? What does that mean for us?" Threx paused, choosing his words carefully. "It means that the consortium is initiating a full investigation. As for you and your team, you are to cease all operations on Karish 4. You will prepare for immediate extraction." Michael frowned. "Cease operations? After everything we've uncovered?" "It's for your own safety," Threx explained. "Your findings have stirred greater forces within the consortium. There will be pushback." Lucas stepped forward, his demeanor insistent. "We can help with the investigation. We have more to do here." Threx shook his head. "Your part is done. You've ignited the spark, but now it's up to others to carry the flame." The transmission ended, leaving the team in stunned silence. Vera broke it first. "He's right. We've done what we came here to do. It's bigger than us now." Ethan stopped pacing and looked at each of his team members. Then it's time for the next chapter. Let's pack up and prepare for whatever comes next. The team worked together, methodically dismantling their setup and packing their equipment. As they worked, their conversation turned to plans for the future. "What will you do when you get back?" Michael asked Ethan as they secured a container. Ethan smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Maybe take a vacation, somewhere less deadly." Lucas laughed, clapping Ethan on the back. "You deserve it, but something tells me you won't sit still for long." Vera joined them, her expression more serene than before. "And I will ensure that our findings are not buried. This is just the beginning." As the sun set on their final day on Karish 4, the team stood together outside the base, looking out over the alien landscape that had been their home. "Where to next, Deathworlder?" Vera asked Ethan, using the nickname that had started as a jest but had become a term of endearment. Ethan took her hand, feeling the familiar rush of adventure stir within him. "Anywhere but here," he replied, his voice full of promise. They shared a look, a silent agreement that no matter where they went next, their journey would continue together. As the extraction ship descended from the sky, its lights cutting through the twilight, they knew that their mission on Karish 4 was complete, but their fight for truth and exploration was just beginning.